The sole cause of all the dissatisfaction and discord in the world is to be found in the fact that human notes, like musical ones, often occupy the wrong places on the ledger lines of being. And all that is needed to set them right is not, as many world savers imagine, a complete destruction of the existing system, but merely a little judicious transposition to be effected by the great transposer, common sense. As I gazed through the lane of light upon the man before the audience, I saw that he, like others, was a good note, capable of filling an important place in the harmon head. But he was far from being in the right spot, and for two reasons, one of which he was too violent ambition to know mysteries beyond him, and to change the sinners into saints by eloquent speech. Hence he, like myself a few moments before, became impatient, the result of which was a self-doom, or lower planes of thought, act, and observation. I found that he was unsuccessful also in another cause, believing himself to be right, that this knowledge was real, that his intuitions were reliable, and knowing that many fields lay upon before his soul for explanation which were sealed to others, his spirit grew restive from neglect, and the lack of attention he thought his truth demanded. And from the height of power he fell to abjectness, because he would not ponder to the popular taste and fancy. This was a sin in the right direction truly, but one that took too many mouthful of bread from his wife and little ones, and who had been well fed, clothed, and cared for, if the spirit of pride had been given way to policy, imposture, and craft. Three counterpoints which would have brought out, set off, and relieved certain beauties whose effect would have been popularity below, but regrets deep and bitter in the soul world. Fool was he, or was he not, for refusing to ring the dull changes suited to the edification and advancement of the so-called philosophers and reformers, people who hold Jesus up to ridicule and speak of God as the chap supposed to dwell beyond the stars. No! His true place was at the center of a few prayerful souls, and the wielder of a pen for God's sake, instead of being the mouthpiece and oracle of those who next day would not only forget, but previously curse him for his pains. It came to me that such is the fate of nearly all the class of persons who cultivate spiritual acquaintances at the cost and loss of will and complete self-sacrifice. These people, at best, are only the ephemera of the age, and well it is that this is such the case. They are sneered at, vilified, scandalized, and traduced, sapped of the last drop of vitality, and then exultingly laughed at for being such fools. And when the days of hardship come, but very few of those for whom the tremendous sacrifice has been made will go to their relief. In fact, these human-looking and humane-talking people can stand the self-immolated victim grief and sorrow very well indeed. The rising tide may engulf the lonely ones, and not at hand of them all be stretched out to save. True, such conduct is in strict accordance with the way of the world, but it is a very bad way, and those who follow it will pay for their folly in the coming ages. Instead of using these unfortunates in this manner, the true motto and the resolve of everyone should be, it may be that God or destiny is working out some deep and instructive problem through that man or woman, and for the world's best good. It is well to be on the safe side, and therefore best to treat them tenderly and kindly. For it may happen that it shall be said us hereafter, even as ye have treated the least of these, my servants, ye have also treated me. It will be pleasant to know, in the upper worlds, that you have dried some tears and bound up some bleeding wounds in the lower ones. Thus I stood and viewed, at one glance, both cause and result. The man's body was haggard, his spirit very, very weary, and the enveloping sphere was literally torn into shreds. These spheres can only be kept intact and entire by exercise of the active will. But this man's will was like that of the vast number of mediumistic class, the automa of the dwellers in the middle state, had slept, and so soundly that nothing, the echoes of his own misery, could break it. Such people let things take their own course, or else rely on the spirits and earthly friends instead of themselves and deity. They pursue the ways of such a false life, heedless of the inevitable consequences of sorrow and disaster that must ensue. They forget that they be even a moderately talented man or woman is infinitely preferable to being a mere machine or mouthpiece of the lascivious seraph in the great Valhalla of the skies, and that, too, for reasons plainly discernible. I saw with grief and consternation that not one medium in every 10 had a perfect envelope, else they would not be so easily influenced by mortals, nor obsessed and possessed by the dead people from the mid-regions beyond the earth. Though these openings, the bodies and souls of mediums, may be and are attacked, the remnant of will destroyed or lulled, the moral sense stupefied, and the entire being subjugated by spectral harpies of the human ghouls, who wander on either bank of existence. Good spirits do not break the sphere. They approach the crown of the head and infuse thoughts, else blend themselves with the subject, but never by destroying either consciousness or will. Evil spirits attack the lower brain and amative organs, the lower passions, and the force spheres of their victims. In a similar way, the bad people destroy and ruin good ones. Many people, when reading the scriptures, are inclined to explain away many things as poetry when it ought not to be so interpreted. This, the first chapter of the book of Job, contains the following assertions, which it would be well to be read oftener and more carefully. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came along also. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it.